My break because I'm parched as hell. It's all good though. Alrighty. Questions? I got answers. Cool. No questions? Then no answers.
How would you approach anatomy?
What do you mean how do I approach anatomy?
Okay, well, for me, it's usually I would just start doing lines, like the gesture. I would just start with that. And then do you first finish off like the entire body that you wanted to make, or do you go into details immediately?
I see. So I don't do much of that.
Right.
Like I just draw people doing things. And so where I would say how I used to do anatomy is that I would do construction. But now, like I said, I just draw things.
Okay.
And so the reason why I'm able to do this is because of a deep understanding of anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you get that deep understanding of anatomy? Well, you got to draw anatomy from memory often.
Right.
And if you don't, then it becomes hard to do it, right? So you have to construct it or whatever the tools are at your disposal at the time. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I see that.
And so what I tend to tell people to do whenever they study anatomy is to do what I've talked about before, which is test yourself quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you're doing anatomy. So for instance, like if you don't know how to draw an arm, then don't try to draw an arm. Like try to figure it out. And like go online, look at like different arm studies that other people have done and try to figure out what they may have done that you're not doing.
Okay.
And then also like look at what's underneath the hood, like what makes an arm look like an arm.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And if you do this a lot, you'll just start to have like a secondhand understanding of human anatomy. And so for instance, for me,
right.
What's really hard about anatomy is the parts that I don't understand. And that seems like a pretty obvious statement. But what I mean by this is like, I don't understand certain parts of anatomy that I have not studied. So whenever I draw these parts of anatomy, I will have a harder time. And so whenever that happens, I just follow the same strategy that I did for all the other pieces of anatomy that I have a better understanding of, which is just tons of studying, tons of research.
Right.
And then just keep going that way. But like I will say that like anatomy is one of those like art vegetables I like to think about. Like I tell people eat their vegetables, you know, like to be healthy. You hear this expression a lot.
Too much.
Yeah. So like eating your art vegetables, what are those? Like perspective, design fundamentals, form, right. Anatomy, structural integrity, line consistency, patterns. Like there's all sorts of like foundational, you know, and like if we were to relate that to like food, you know, it's like broccolis, certain starches like potatoes, rice, beans, lentils. You should be eating these things, you know.
I got rice covered.
Huh?
I got rice covered.
Just rice. Yeah. Where are you from?
Well, right now I live in Canada, but
Okay.
My origin, long story short, is that my mom and dad are Filipinos,
Okay, so
but I was born
rice.
in the Middle East. Yeah, very
so
Asian.
Definitely, yes, definitely lots of rice for sure in your life. For me too. I'm half Korean, so I was living off of rice. Yeah. So yeah, you got to eat your vegetables, right? I'm like incredibly a vegetable eating person. I'm a vegan, so pretty much all I eat is vegetables. And so then, like, I know all about the vegetables that you should be eating, right? And it's like the same thing with art, you know? You got to like know what those are. Now,
Yeah.
like, and using the vegan assertion too, like, you know, people always will say to me, "Oh, it's really hard to go vegan. Like, I'm really like, I can't live without meat and whatever."
Right.
And I say, "Oh, you can. You just don't want to, and that's fine."
Oh, well, that's an interesting thought.
No, it's definitely you can.
Right.
People, in fact, humans, we're not necessarily meat eaters. We're scavengers. We could eat meat, but it doesn't mean that was our primary diet,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
In fact, most modern societies have some sort of starch that they were able to grow and eat and live off of during, you know, off seasons, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, like, if you look at like some of the Central American cultures, we have corns, we got beans, right? If you look at the Eastern nations, you got rice, right? You got soybeans,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like this. You know, if you look at the European nations, they got lots of root vegetables, right? And same thing with Africa. There's a lot of root vegetables. You know,
Mm.
in fact, starch is probably the reason why we were able to grow our brain, not meat. We were not eating meat at the high capacity, and lions eat meat, and they're not smart. And so it's like a lot of carnivores eat meat, and they're not nearly as smart as us. It's starches. That's the real big difference. No other
Dang.
animal cooks starches, like boils food, specifically like root foods, because there's like a lot of tapped carbohydrates, right?
Right.
That you can't eat a potato raw. It's like really hard, right? Beans too, right? You think about like black beans, like they're like freaking rocks, you know? But when you boil them, they're soft and you can eat a lot of them, you know? And so there's a pretty clear argument to be made that that's what really got us going. But I'm saying, like, getting back to this, kind of make this art related, it's like, you know, I tell people this, you know, like, you can if you want to, they just don't. And it's the same idea, like, you should study anatomy, and they understand that they should, but they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not telling you anything that's crazy. It's not like some sort of crazy art diet. It's like, it's just nobody does it, you know? And that's
Yeah. That makes sense.
ultimately the reason why, like, you're probably struggling with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if you really thought about it, it's like, how often do you actually study anatomy, and how often do you test what you've studied? And you'll almost immediately realize not that often, right?
True that.
And once you start to say, oh yeah, it's like, hey AJ, every time I go to the gym, I try to lift 400 pounds deadlift. I can't do it. It's fucking hard, man. I see people on YouTube do it all the time. I'm like, cool, dude. Like, when's the last time you did deadlift? I think like 3 months ago. Like, well, maybe that's the culprit. It's not that there's some sort of secret trick these people are doing. It's maybe you just don't do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to like the vegan stuff, like it was hard, man. It was definitely really hard. The meat actually wasn't the hard part. Interestingly, the hardest part was the dairy. Dairy is
Dairy.
really hard to get rid of. Yeah, because
Oh
you'll
wow.
find it as like in everything. It's kind of crazy. It's in a lot of foods. Same thing with soy. Soy is in everything, and so it's like,
That makes sense.
yeah, it's really hard to get rid of dairy. And
Dairy.
whenever people tell me that they're trying to get rid of dairy and they're struggling, I can sympathize with that deeply. The meat stuff, I don't, because you can, you just have to have a strong will. The dairy is like, you actively have to fucking fight against the system. You know, like, I bought my daughter Pop Rocks once. They have milk in them. Like, I didn't even know. I was like, what? Pop Rocks, if you don't know, are the candies where if you
Oh yeah, like they pop in your mouth.
yeah, they pop in your mouth. I thought it was just like
Yeah.
sugar and some sort of
Right.
other chemical reaction, right? No, it's like,
Yeah.
has milk in there too, man. There's a lot of things that you just don't realize has milk in it, and has milk in it.
Oof.
You know, the obvious stuff, right? Like cheese and butter, of course. But there's like things that you would never think that had it, right? That have like
Mhm.
tons of it. And so yeah, I definitely encourage people to cut back, not just for health reasons, but also environmental. It's very helpful in the environment. And
All
so,
right.
like, I'm vegan now. No, I think cutting back, because
Subway
that's what I
forever.
did. Yeah, that's what I did. I cut back, and then eventually I just is like, well, I mean, why not just go all the way? You know,
Yeah.
I don't encourage like hardcore cold turkey stuff when it comes to becoming an artist, right? I don't also encourage that for changing your lifestyle, because it is a lifestyle change. And
Yeah.
so I have friends who've done that. They went super cold turkey and they weren't able to maintain it. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah. The transition needs to, I guess, needs to have a slow pace, I guess, before you can just say you're gonna completely do it. I assume.
absolutely. Yeah. You gotta ease yourself into it, man. Um,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not
Okay.
going to go 100%. My family isn't. My wife did it for like 2 years, I think. She was pretty 100%, but she
Right.
just really loves fish, so she just started eating fish again.
Fair enough.
And I was like, that's fine. I don't really care, especially because I know she doesn't eat it often, and so it's like it's a whole better than nothing strategy again.
Yeah.
It's really we're really fucking our environment up. Um,
No kidding.
to kind of go into a different tangent that's not going to make you guys feel guilty about your lifestyle, but more just like this kind of philosophical conundrum. Um, there's this thing called the Fermi Paradox. This will make you feel depressed in a different way. What I'm about to
Perfect.
tell you.
Just another
Yeah,
one.
yeah. This is more of an existential problem, more rather than like an individual problem. So there's this thing called the Fermi Paradox, and the Fermi Paradox, I believe, is made by some guy named Fermi, and this is a paradox he pointed out. And
Oh,
the paradox is this: is that people are searching for life, and we just can't find any. Right? There just doesn't seem to be life anywhere in the universe, and the math just doesn't add up. It seems like there should be tons of intelligent life found all over the place, right?
right.
Yet it's like when we look, like we don't even see glimpses, you know, and that gets these scientists real worried. And so the I guess Fermi or whoever came up with the Fermi paradox made this paradox of like the universe is so vast yet it's so empty. Like what is going on here? And one of the catches of the Fermi paradox is that it's because just life is really hard. It's just really hard to make life exist in the universe in general. Okay. And to become a high level sentient race, like intelligent, highly intelligent race that can travel the universe, is incredibly challenging for multiple reasons. But it's just like maybe it's just that's the thing. It's just not possible. Okay. And there comes a point where a species becomes super intelligent that they are become their own destruction. It's just part of nature, right? And this is super depressing, obviously, for the expansion of humanity, knowing that it's just not possible to evolve beyond that. And one of
Right.
the so there's like a lot of like catches to why this could happen. So one of them is the popular one, like we make robots to kill us or something like that, or we
Mhm.
create some sort of bacterial antibiotic.
Virus.
Like
Yeah.
no, well
Yeah.
we do what we create a antibacteria like a antibiotic thing that actually is so good that it even kills us. It's like there's all
Oof.
kinds of things that we can get like that are not necessarily intentional. And one of my favorite ideas that I've heard, and I think it'd be a cool movie idea too, is that there is like just one master species that's out there, and they're looking out for the greater good of the universe, right? And
Okay.
whenever they see a species go beyond a very certain threshold, they'll either let them join their giant armada or they'll obliterate them. And the way that they would obliterate them would be very similar to like what we do when we see an Ebola like outbreak. We quarantine and then we just kill the disease, right?
Pretty much.
And so then they see this alien species might see it the same way. That like imagine that we created a robot that all its mission was is to take whatever resources it needed to create the most sustainable power source, right? And we just didn't write the code accurately enough to also keep us in mind. And it does. It starts creating this power source. It starts doing these things. It starts destroying our own planet. It's like indirectly destroying us. Kind of like if you mow your lawn, you indirectly are like murdering countless insects, you know?
Yeah, that sounds like Mass Effect.
Yeah. So Mass Effect, exactly. And so it's like, now imagine this species is actually in the right, and they're not necessarily looking at it like, oh, we're going to destroy them just for the sake of destroying them. We're destroying them because they're going to create technology that's like Ebola. It's like once this technology gets outside of their control, like the humanity, for instance, it starts to destroy their own sun, right? And once it's this robot sentient species that we've created done destroying our planet and our solar system, it moves on to the next one and keeps getting bigger, right? Like
Pretty
a
much. Yep.
uncontrollable virus,
Yep.
right? Like an outbreak. And so the species is like, before they get there, we're gonna blow them up. You know, like they're on the brink of potential destroy, like universe destroying um creation, you know. And that's one of the parts of like the Fermi paradox. But the point of the Fermi paradox in general is just that intelligent life is just, maybe it's just not possible to go beyond a very certain threshold, and they call that threshold the great filter, which is the filter that life can never surpass, no matter what. It's really depressing, but it's like, by looking at the stars and the planets that are around us, it seems like it's very likely that this is probably true. You know?
I mean, it could happen in a different part of the universe already, for all we know.
Well, that's the point. Like, it's happened. It could have happened already, all over the place, all the time. In fact, there's real suspicion that if we find life in our solar system, like we go to Mars and we land there, we have people there and they pick up a sample and they're like, oh, dude, there's tons of life, right? Because
Yeah.
a human can do more in one day what a robot, like in 1 hour, what than a robot can do in like a month, you know?
Right. Right.
And so that we can discover it like right away. And once we do, that should actually lead us to be real skeptical of the progress of intelligent life. Because if life is not hard, like life can grow wherever the fuck, like even the extreme climates like Mars, then what the fuck? Where's all the life at? You know? Why is it so rare? You know?
This is a great idea for Hollywood now.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of movie ideas based off of this. I think it's a cool, because yeah, most alien movies, they come in and they get the common cold and we defeat them. It should be more existential. It should feel more like a horror, like a not a horror movie, like you know that movie 2012 where it's just like a giant disaster,
Just disaster. Yeah.
or Twister. It's like a force of nature. There's nothing you could do about it. You just got to like live through it, right? Like it should feel like that. Like the alien invasions should be
Right.
that. Like there's literally, as humans can't do anything about it, but like how do the humans survive if they do at all? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. That reminds me of a podcast, Joe Rogan podcast, where he had Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he talked about how, like, Neil believes that we think all these movies and stuff that we watch of aliens coming in and destroying us and whatever, that's all what we see in ourselves.
Yeah.
Because for us, like back then, you know, when the Europeans went to see the Americas, uh, we pretty much, or they pretty much took over by force, and so uh, that's what
Like
Stephen
they want
Hawking
to, yeah,
thinks.
they want to like our resources.
Right,
So we
right,
think that that's what they want. Yeah,
exactly,
I don't agree with that premise either. I don't think
right.
that's realistic.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, I don't, yeah, he's like, I don't agree with that at all. We don't really know what, if there's such thing as aliens, you know,
Yeah.
we don't really know what they really are capable of doing.
Yeah, their motivations. Yeah,
So
I'm with
I mean,
that.
we don't know. That's it. That's all.
Anyway, yeah. So hopefully I let that sit in. So you guys are like, what's the point of being concept artists now?
Don't worry. That's
Like the aliens are gonna come in and destroy us all. Like that will take a while, guys, before we realize we're real fucked.
We'll
Hopefully by then we've made our robots slaves who need to take care of us.
or probably all of us here now wouldn't be even there. Wouldn't even be here anymore. Probably no.
I'm hoping to be there. I want to be a robot. I want to upload my consciousness to the I consciousness, dude.
The
Or
IAJ.
or Samsung consciousness. Whoever does it first. Probably freaking Facebook. Anyway.
I'm sure Elon Musk has something in mind.
He does. Anyone else have any questions?
I had a question.
Who is that? Get out of here.
It's Mike. What's up, Mike? What's
What's
up,
up,
Mike?
brother?
Um, I got two, pretty quick. One is whenever you've worked on a big project, have you ever been in conversations about monetization? Is that
What do you
not a
mean?
thing? Well, there's some once again a controversy with Call of Duty, and
Oh, I see.
I'm wondering like y- everyone always says it's Activision the publisher, not the developers, and then I tend
Got
to
it.
think like developers should have some say in monetization practices. Um, like how much is it just that we assume, or not me, but the community assumes it's a publisher,
Uh-huh.
but like it's actually Infinity Ward? Like what's going on? And you have worked in the industry, so I thought I'd ask, like, has there ever been conversation in studio or anything like that about like what the monetization strategies are, or
Yeah,
is it really
always.
okay? That's what I thought.
Yeah, I when I was working on this project, um, we would talk about it. We're like, we're gonna make these outfits and they're gonna be monetized. It's like that's how it is. Now, whether you agree with it or not, right? That's a whole different argument. But I like, for instance, to give you guys a perspective, like whenever like companies like Adobe or whatever, like they say we were going to do a subscription model, I support this. Where I know a lot of people don't, they get real weird about it. And the reason why I support this is because these companies, uh, you know, have employees, and these employees need to make money, right? And so it's always really it's a catch-22 type situation, because at one level you feel like the consumer is getting real effed over, right? So for instance, like the microtransaction stuff, right? But at the same time, if you let the consumer have all of the control, right? This is where people are. This is a very unpopular opinion, which is letting the corporations have some sense of rights, right? But if you have let the consumer have entirely too much control as well, right? That can dictate how a company runs, even if that's not what they want to do. It's not. It goes against their own philosophy as a company. Um, then we end up in a problematic situation, don't we? And I don't know. I don't know necessarily know I have an answer for these questions, like what the solutions are for this. But I know that it's a problem all around, right? And so, for instance, if you were to ask me, like, they were making slot machines out of the microtransaction stuff, and this is being sold to children, I am entirely against it, right? Like, I'm with you when it comes to microtransactions, right? Because it can be addictive, and if your argument is this fear of addiction for younger kids, that is not hard to get me convinced, and I think most people, right? But if your argument is like we don't like it because fucking about the game and whatever, then I'm not on your side, then from the consumer, because ultimately just don't buy the game then, right? Like if you don't like what they have done,
Wait,
then you don't necessarily want them to change their business model just because you don't like it,
but
right?
there's a problem with that. So in the case of Black Ops, the last one, the game that they sold at the beginning was just fine, and there was no microtransaction problems. And then several months into the game's development, they started adding all of these predatory microtransactions that people wouldn't have wanted to buy the game if those were in there in the first place. So it ruins the game. So now that that example doesn't really work because they can sell you a product that is fair and then later add that stuff because it's a live service game where there's multiplayer and stuff. So they can essentially get your money by selling you the dream of or the promise of a fair, balanced marketing or monetization system, and then change it later because it's not a set product. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the argument you're making where you can just boycott with your dollar, then you would have to assume bad faith and just not buy in the first place, which people should be doing. But that's a different conversation.
No, I mean, I don't see how that differs. If the company does something that you think is
You
nefarious,
can't
then
get your money
stop.
back after they've changed their shit up.
Yeah, you can. You can ask for a refund.
Not 4 months later, dude.
Then you don't buy their next game.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah. So if somebody like does that, yeah, sure, it's bad.
Yeah.
And I'm saying then don't buy their game. The problem is people still buy the game.
Yeah, I bought the game.
Yeah, so it's like okay, so you can't get
I'm
mad
not
at
coming
that.
from a place of complaining. I'm just like paying attention to everything that's going
Yeah,
on.
like for instance, when everyone got so upset about like Red Dead Redemption's 2's like crazy work schedule for their employees, literally I have friends who literally were working 16-hour days, like didn't see their families for months.
Yeah.
Um, and then this came out, like people were fucking like, this is real, and people were like, damn, fucking Rockstar and their bad like work ethic and all this stuff, making their employees working crazy hours for long periods of times. Like, don't get me wrong, like crunch is a crunch, they exist, but like
Yeah.
for several months, that's kind of crazy, especially if you're not like releasing like that year. It's kind of weird to be making people crunch like like 2 years before the game's even supposed to be released. It's like weird. Like really want those horseball physics, dude, to work. And so it's like I see that and I heard that and I believe it, and so I didn't buy the game, right? But all my peers, including the ones that made the complaints, bought the game. I remember me and my friend, we had a really good debate about this. We were hanging out at a beer, like a bar. I was going to say beer club, at a bar, and we were talking about all this stuff. And he was just like, he's like, it's like kind of like how the Egyptians, or like how the pyramids were made. Like they might have been made by slaves. I think this has been debunked, but you get the premise. Um, the pyramids were made by slaves, but the pyramids are super dope, though, right? It's like, either you're for it or you're not, and if you're not for it and you still do things that are skeptical, then you just gotta like be honest that that's just the reality of it, right? Like how you are, there's no reason to debate if you're going against your own principles. Just say you are, because you just can't get over this indulgence, right? And that's the part that like we got to let people be responsible for their actions is what I'm getting at, right? Now, if you were to tell me that Black Ops is like making like we're selling this to minors and there's like clearly kid type advertisements, for instance, like the e-cigarettes industry, right, where they would actually make like kid flavored cigarettes, like stuff that are clearly like more appealing to children, right, instead of adults.
Fruity Loop flavors.
Yeah, like that is very clear for me. That's because children are clearly way less in control of their actions. Thus they're still in their development stage, right? They're trying to figure out what's going on in life, right? So they're really easily manipulative or manipulated. Ugh, I can't say it. They're easier to manipulate, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so I can see how that's a fair argument. In fact, people have been using that argument against the Greta chick, right? For like the climate change stuff. So I understand this premise, but at some point we got to like look at the context of what's going on, especially with the video game stuff. It's like a lot of these people who are usually complaining are generally older people, right? And people who just, there was a time where this was not how things were done. It's a very like back in my day kind of premise. And for me, it's like I don't buy these games. I've never I think I only bought like the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I think that's like the last Call of Duty that I ever bought. I even teach my kids that they play a game like called Roblox, and they wanted to buy a gift card, and I was trying to tell them like you're not really buying anything though. You have to understand that. And my daughter kind of had a real sense of this because when she went to buy the gift card, she also wanted to buy this teddy bear. And the teddy bear cost just as much as this gift card. And so she had a real conundrum on her end, and because we weren't going to buy her the teddy bear and get her Roblox. That's her money. Like she's going to buy whatever the hell she wants, and I want to kind of like teach them at a young age that some stuff is just not worth buying. And she's already bought Roblox stuff twice, and it's a real hard thing, man. Like kids want to keep doing it, but like I'm trying to teach her that she needs to kind of be responsible for her own spending, right? And so I feel like a lot of what's going on with the industry complaints, for lack of like a better term, it just feels like a lot of men childish behavior, right? And that's why I'm just kind of like very skeptical whenever there's like a lot of because people will say, well, there's other games, there's no games out there, or there's like this is my game that I love. It's like, huh?
I said I'm hearing that a lot. People are
Yeah,
complaining that there's no good games right
but there's tons, man.
now.
They
Yeah,
just don't
man.
want to play them, and that's kind of my point. You know, like I'm in I'm in the support of developers usually. Now, that doesn't
He's how it
always
is.
mean, yeah, that doesn't always mean that developers make the right choices either. Okay, and so I also, to be clear, I don't like microtransactions either. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and be like microtransactions are dope. You know, I don't like them either. You know, and I tend to try not to spend any money in microtransactions. I think the most I've ever did spend on one game was Clash Royale. I think in the span of like 3 to 4 years I've played that game, I spent probably up to $200, $300 easily, right? But I
Is it worth it?
still play that game. Like I literally was playing it last night. I love that game, you know.
Oh,
And so to me, it's like a very clear investment because I play it a lot and I don't spend money like every month or every day, right? Like every once in a while, I'll buy like $50 worth of like their in-game currency, right? So I can get more cards. But that's like $50 in that year, maybe $100 within that year, like two instances. But I don't buy or play many other games. You know, it's not like I play like that and then 7 other different games that also have crazy microtransactions to it. You know, so I don't really have this problem that I think a lot of other people are running into. You know,
all
and
right.
so that's why I think it's more of like consumers need to be more intelligent to what's available to them.
I don't think they're gonna change
Yeah,
at this point. I really don't, because the main thing I'm critiquing is the fact that every time this happens, and it's so funny. Call of Duty is an annual game. This game comes out every fucking year, and every year we have the same complaints. And then they keep saying Activision, man, it's fucking Activision, and it's like, no, dude, like, don't. Why do you go into it with no knowledge? You literally know nothing about the industry. You just play the games, and then you assume that it's the publisher and not the studio that has any say in it, and you
yeah.
just immediately excuse the developers. And I find that so strange that it's like
Well,
they
it's
just.
like you said, nobody knows. They don't know any better, and it's fine.
That's why I asked you, like, are they right or are they wrong on their
No, because
assumptions? And
if
I assume wrong.
no, because it's a supply and demand. If nobody buys those games, then they're going to change their strategy, you know.
Yeah,
But people don't realize too that these have consequences, which usually come in the form of layoffs, right,
right,
and
right.
firings.
We've had a extended conversation about
Yeah,
this. Could I
and when
ask my
that,
second question quickly, and then we can move to someone else?
okay, cool.
All right. Sorry. The second question was about plein air painting. I got an invite. I'm sick, so I didn't go. But
Uh
he
huh.
said next time. One of the guys I met over in at Lightbox over here in Bellevue, messaged me and invited me to go plein air painting with
Oh,
him, which is
dope.
really, yeah, really dope. And I was like, oh, but I'm sick right now, so next time. But he's an environment guy, and I obviously want to take him up on that. But I'm not doing environments, so like if I was to go plein air painting with him, how should I approach it as a character focused
No, you
guy?
should always just still do it. Like
Okay.
it doesn't have to be like always characters. You should just focus on practicing painting better and more effectively. Like work
Okay,
on
cool.
spotting colors and patterns and design. Like make it like a more of like a design study thing. Like try to draw things that look good and try to understand why they look good rather than try to understand how to paint a whole environment. But you can also like try to learn how to paint a whole environment. It's not going to hurt you, especially if this is more of like a hobby based thing rather than like you're like trying to really get professional. Like when I go to sketch groups, I don't necessarily like I'm not going full tilt study mode, you know.
Yeah,
I'm usually just hanging out, drinking beers, and just drawing whatever's on my mind. It's more of like a social, um, it's like social
that's why I
equity.
wanted to take him up on it.
Yeah, it's more of like a social gathering rather than like, oh, dude, I better make sure I get good time out of this. You should just think of it as like, okay, I'm gonna use this time to practice and study and just have good conversations, but like in a very loose sense, not nothing like if like because I used to do those type of things too, and I don't put a lot of uh, weight onto whether it should be good or not. You know, I just paint. I just paint whatever is on my mind, or draw whatever is on my mind. You know, when I go life drawing, I feel life drawing is a different situation. When I go life drawing, it's a serious study session, especially since like nobody else is talking. You know, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna like try to find ways to get these shapes into my visual library. If you find that that's what happens when you hang out with these guys, I'm sure it's not. I can't imagine it will be like that. Because with life drawing, it's very clear that everyone should just shut up. I don't know with like plein air, because I haven't done it myself too much. But every time I have, it doesn't seem like it's that kind of environment. You just hang out. But you might find that everyone's like shutting up, just working.
Read the room.
Then you should feel the same way. Then okay, well I'll just take this time to actually study. Then I'll see what I can get out of this. If you're out in real life, like in nature, then there's still things you can learn from nature that can help you as a character designer. That's
Like
all
material
obviously
and
true.
whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things you can do.
Just use my brain.
Yeah, just figure where the value can be and just focus on that.
All right, that answers it. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So you worked at Sony, Blizzard, and like probably other dope companies as well. I was wondering.
Yes, I have worked for other dope companies. This is
Yeah,
true.
you can put that as a tagline. I've worked for dope companies.
That's in my bio. I work for dope
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah, but I really want to know like if there's anything useful you learned like at each
Oh, I see.
company,
No, that's great.
and like something like a newcomer like me should know.
Yeah, just the one thing that I think is the most valuable thing that I've ever learned um, is that the grass is always greener. Okay.
Hmm.
And so this expression, the grass is always greener, have you ever heard of it before?
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't sure, it just implies that like everybody always thinks that working somewhere else is going to be better. And this isn't always the case. In fact, I think most places are fine. It's just that most like people just complain. Like people are a bunch of complainers. And I'm not trying
True facts.
yeah, I'm not trying to like make fun of my peers and stuff. I've just seen this happen quite often, like well people would find things to be mad about, you know?
Yeah.
And justifiably there are places that you should be mad about, like they're not great, you know? But this is not like this is to me it's not an overwhelming truth, you know? Like most of the places that I worked for have been amazing. Like my favorite company that I've ever worked for was Blizzard, and I left Blizzard, but not for any other reason other than to work for myself, right?
Right.
And so, you know, people might think, oh, Blizzard's not great, whatever. Like I have friends who worked at Blizzard and they would complain about working at Blizzard, and then they left and then they found another studio. Like I have a good friend of mine, he went to work for Konami, and as soon as he started working for Konami, like he hated it.
Oh.
And I think he didn't realize because Blizzard I think was his first big studio job. He worked
Right.
on he worked at Bungie, but I don't think he only worked there for like a few months. He didn't work there long enough. And then
Okay.
he worked at Blizzard for several years, and he just kind of didn't like it. You know, he was really upset about it. But then he ended up just doing or he ended up hating Konami because it had like a whole different philosophy of work, and it was like the respect was not there as much as he thought it might be, you know. And he ultimately left there to go work for 343, which I think now he likes. He does like 343, you know. But
Okay.
like but the grass is always greener, meaning that like people just find things to be upset about. This is probably like the biggest thing that I find about different studios is that there's just like it's more of a cultural thing that you should focus on. But one of the things that kind of echoes this sentiment of like the grass is always greener is that like people just assume that when you work at a job too, like when you work at these dope ass companies that you refer to, that everything will be solved. Like your
Yeah.
problems, like you've done it.
Yeah.
Now you can just sit back and life is easy. That's
Yeah.
also incredibly false. In fact, it becomes a job. This is why I encourage people to try to get a job right away at a company that they would like to work for. Now, it doesn't mean that it's like these dope ass companies, but like a company that they actually enjoy going in and going out, like what they do. They might not like all of the pieces, right? There might be some things, but they at the end of the day, they do like the job that they have, right? Like
Yeah.
they wanted to be a character concept artist, and they are doing character concepts. You know, they feel happy with it. They like the people they work with. You know, maybe it's not Blizzard. You know, maybe it's not Riot, but it's like a place. You know, it's home. And I encourage that because when you get a job working anywhere else, right? Like just because I just want to get a job, right? I just want to work. You might find that that's actually easy to do, but then you start working for a company that you don't like, that you hate every minute of it, you know?
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is just like the other example, like if you work somewhere, it's still a job, even if you like it. But now you also have the problem of not liking where you're working at, you know? So you have double the problem. You have like the place that you like to work at, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the place that you don't like to work at, and it's a job, right? Because
Yeah.
in the instance of like working at Blizzard, you still have to check in, you still come in, you still have someone to be accountable for or accountable to, and you just work, you grind and just do stuff, and then the next day, same stuff. You might be drawing the same design. It's not like class where you can like constantly mix it up, try different things, experiment. No, it's work. You're a cog in the machine, you know. And people don't expect that. People think it's like this crazy, like fun house of like constant idea creation. It's like, no, sometimes the idea's already been made and you just got to draw it cool. You know, like you won't have this freedom of designing your own ideas. And this is when people start to feel empty. They feel like they lose track of who they are as artists. That's why I always also encourage doing lots and lots of personal work.
Yeah.
Doing tons of personal work, because when you do that, you will increase your happiness on your own, right? If you don't do personal work, you're going to feel real aggro all the time. And so I encourage.
So was it really hard for you to do personal work while you were working at Blizzard or Sony?
No, not at all. But that's because I learned the hard way. Because I worked at a company. I worked at a company where I didn't do any of that stuff, and then we got laid off, and I had nothing to show for it.
I've heard the story.
I had nothing to show for it, and that's what drove me. And so then my first real big studio job that I got was Sony Santa Monica, and I did personal work there. In fact, I got in trouble lots of times because they'd be like, nice. "You're working on personal work, do work," and I'd be like, "I did do the work. It's already done." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's right here." And then I show them like several sketches, and they're like, "What the?" And I always tell people to do personal work like at like lunch or something at a place, or like after work or before work. And if you do it during work, like you gotta have like when they show up to your desk to scold you for your lack of work ethic, you pop them like, no, I actually have crazy work ethic, and I did like all of these drawings, and I'm also trying to get even better at drawing, bro. You know, and you're like it's really hard to get mad at someone who's like expanding their skill set after the fact, you know. And so that's the way around that feeling, is just do personal work. And a lot of people don't do personal work either, and so it's easier to complain, you know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having complaints. Like, I want to be clear about this. It's just that at some point, if you keep having the same complaints, I'm just not going to care, you know. Like if you keep telling me like this is a constant problem that you hate and you literally do nothing about it, then at some point I'm just going to be like, yeah, I don't think you care. And so I'm not going to care either, you know. Like it's like if you tell me, oh my gosh, like I work this freaking job, I'm working like 10-hour days and stuff like that, it's really tiring. And so the first time I'm hearing this, I'll be like, oh man, it fucking sucks. Have you decided to like look at somewhere else, or have you talked to your boss about it? And no, like I feel like if I did, like they probably wouldn't talk to me or like work with me on it. I'm like, I don't know, it's just fucking, I don't think it's possible. It's like, well, you should try, dude. You should try to talk to them, whatever. You know, and there's like, you know what, all right, maybe I will. You know, and so you should also like, if that doesn't work, you should find another job. You know, maybe I will do that. You know, everybody says, yeah, it's cool when you tell them this, no, like pretty obvious advice, and then let's say like 4 months later, the same person comes up to me and they're like, oh man, like working another like hours beyond reason. And I was like, well, have you talked to your boss? Like, yeah, but like not really. And you know, and then they start to kind of go on this. And I'm like, all right, well, I think you really should talk to your boss, dude. You know, like really talk to them. Like if they say no, like I think it's actually against the law, you know, especially in California. I was like, you could probably say like it's against the law to have us work this many hours, you know, and I don't want to be fired. I just want to see my family. Like you got to work with me, man. Like maybe we can work something out, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about management and figure out why it's happening so often. You know, just like come in there with like a level head. If they fire you because of that, you can probably sue them, you know, or ask for severance. And you know, they're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, whatever. And then like a year later, oh man, we're done. You know, I'm like, all right. Like I don't think you actually care. You know? Like you're clearly just upset that this is happening, but you don't want to do anything about it. And I've already tried to give you advice on this, and it's like, look, I don't know the ins and outs of what could have happened or what can go wrong, but I don't respect the lack of effort. You know what I mean? Like I don't want my friends to get fired, but at the same time, like I don't want to keep hearing them whine over and over. You know? And so it's like whenever that happens, I do get a little bit more frustrated. But at that point, I feel it's justified, so I don't get too mad about myself. I don't get upset with myself when those moments happen. You know? But anyway, hopefully that gives you some insight. But there's nothing like there are things that might shock you, like maybe the pace of the work or the quality that's expected of you, or like the kind of art direction. But these things aren't like crazy, like nothing that you would be like, oh, I never expected this would happen.
Do you know any stories of your colleagues or any friends who've had something really terrible happen to them at these AAA game studios?
No, nothing that's again too shocking. Just fun stories. But there's one that has nothing to do with like what I talked about. It's just more of like a funny story. Where there's this female artist. She was just like staring at people. You know how people have two monitor setups, and in between the monitor there's a space, and so she would like stare at people through that space, and people would catch her. And you know how like when someone catches you staring at them, even if you didn't mean to, like you know what I'm talking about, like if you're just looking in their direction, but you just realize that you were staring at them, you look away, like right, like that's kind of like the common like, oh my bad, I didn't. Or even if you were staring at them, you're just like, oh no, I wasn't staring. Like you're just the person I wanted to look at deeply, but now you caught me. I'm gonna look away. She would not do that. She would just like keep staring. And then like my friend was like telling me, he's like, yeah, like, and so I thought maybe like she was daydreaming or something, or she would just like was looking in that direction. But like, so I would like get up and walk, and she would just kind of still be looking at me, and then I would like walk really far, like out of frame, and then she would stop staring entirely. Right? Like I would walk like a really far distance, where the point where she would have to stand up to keep staring at me. And he said then she would stop. Then she would just look back at her monitor. And when he would come out of his desk again, she wouldn't be staring at him. She'd be working, whatever. So he's like, all right, okay, maybe it's just that one moment. And then he'll like look over, and then she'll be staring at him again. And I don't know. My friend was like, I mean, if it'll be one thing if my friend was like incredibly attractive individual, like a dude, and then this person just was getting super like turned up by him, you know? But no, he's like average. So it was like, because you know what I'm talking about. Like there's some people that are just so ungodly attractive. Like it is hard to not look at them. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just like a normal reaction just for most people. Like when you see someone that's like a god walking amongst the humans, you know, it's really hard not to. Like I remember one time I saw Angelina Jolie in real life. It felt very much like this. I was like, what the hell? Like I was in the middle of a conversation with my friends, and then one of my friends stopped talking, and then then my other friend, like which was his brother, he also stopped talking like around the same time. We were like in the middle of a conversation. We were just like, oh yeah, and then like, hey. And I was like, like what's going on? And then I looked where they looked, and that's when I saw that they were seeing Angelina Jolie, and we all just kind of like froze, and we're just like, because we were at the red carpet. It was we had a concert.
Okay.
And so,
I mean, she's literally a god now because she's gonna be in Marvel's Eternals. So.
Yeah, and so, but this is true for gentlemen as well. Like, you know, if you see like a really attractive specimen of any kind, it's just like real distracting. But like I said, he wasn't like that. He was just like, he was good looking, but he was average. So this employee or coworker of his was just like super thirsty or something, or just weird, you know. And there's nothing wrong with being weird. You just got to keep that in the wraps, dude. Like there are some social standards that people react to, you know, if you don't abide by them. And I think staring is a pretty good one, you know. And so she got fired because of that, because it wasn't just him. Like it was like a lot of other guys that were getting like just oogled, and so they just all felt uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, that's real weird. And he said it sucks too because she was a really good artist, and yeah, she just was super weird. And I always tell my students, like, if you're super weird, just do freelance. Like, I want you guys to get work too, man. Like, there's nothing wrong with being weird. It's just that other people don't react well to that weirdness. So you might want to like work with what you got. You know?
Yeah.
If you're a real jerk too, yeah, go freelance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably the weirdest one. I'll take
Pretty
one more
nice.
question.
Pretty interesting to hear.
Oh, Justin had a question?
Hello. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, hi. I wanted to ask whether, like, are there freelancing opportunities for people like us who are just in the middle?
In the middle?
Like, we are not on the job.
Just in the middle of the road. And they're like, they were looking for people, but they have to be right in the middle of the road. Yeah, yeah. Listen, there's no middle, okay, and there's no beginner. There's no advanced. I think the advanced is probably the most obvious, probably, but even then, like I've worked for studios that would have artists that I didn't think were like senior level artists. You know, however they got in. Not to be critical of that. I'm just saying that it is very possible. In fact, I feel like a lot of my early career was successful because of my ability to talk with people, you know, like my charisma, right? Like to be able to like just upfront just talk to folks, you know, that's a lot. That has a lot of value. I mean, you can even ask Mike, because Mike actually went to the Lightbox with me. I hustled it. I talked to everybody. I'm like super friendly to all and everyone, right? And yeah, and it's not just like a good like on principle, right? Like it's really like, oh man, it's really nice to see someone like AJ be able to talk to the common folk. Like I understand that that's that narrative, right? Why that's super appealing, you know, to a on a principled level. And that's why I've done it in the past, like, and that's why I still do it, is based off of that principle. But I'm also someone who's very observant and try to be very self-reflective. And I noticed that there's a lot of value in doing that, not just because of good principle, right? Like, because being a good person is nice. But because like not everybody's going to suck forever. So if you're really nice to somebody, just because you just like, again, I didn't think about this when I was doing this, but now as time has gone on, because now some of these people I've been nice to are like art directors and lead concept artists for major studios, you know? And I'm like, oh, like there's even a more practical reason why to be nice outside of just being principally nice, you know? Like, because if you're nice to somebody who's just a student, 5 years later, that person might be a lead at a major studio. That's why it's not just like important to be nice to your teacher, right? Or nice to other professionals that are doing what you would like to do. It's nice to be, it's also important to be nice to your peers, because some of these people are going to be working in industries. And if you guys get along naturally, I don't think you should force it, right? Like, but if you get naturally or friendly with one another and nice with one another, like there's more incentive to want to work with each other. Right? And so that's why I'm saying like there's no real like middle or like pro or like
it's like I want to work, but then I don't know how to find work. Like I can't get on a job, full-time job as of now, because I have certain other responsibilities. So I was searching for freelance work, but it's really hard to get freelance work here. So
yeah, and it goes back to this whole, you only can control two facets, right? So one facet you're doing a pretty good job of right now, which is trying to get better at your artwork, right? But the other facet, what are you doing? Which is the networking, getting to know people. What are you doing outside of just emailing people, you know? And if you're not doing anything, then obviously it's not going to help, right? Like, there's people like Kim Jong-gi. I love to use him as an example because he was always amazing. You know, it wasn't like he just showed up and was amazing. Like, he was always amazing. And then somebody just shared his work online, and then now everybody knows that he's amazing, you know? And so it's like, if you are living on like a desert island and you don't go to events, you don't talk to people outside of your circles, and you're like, man, it's really hard to get jobs. It's like, because nobody knows you exist. It's really that simple. And the more you increase that list of people that you know, right? Like, let me diagram it for you. Right? Like if we were to think of it like, very simply, like a percentage of opportunity, right?
Correct.
That you want to get like 100% control over your opportunities, whether that's freelance, contract work, whatever. Okay. And then, like I said, the quality of your work and networking of your friends is how you can get to this 100%, right? And so let's say you're putting a maximum effort into each of these. The maximum effort can always max out at 50%. Think of it this way. Okay. That's the max it can ever get. So if you're really, 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 really good at your work, like you're amazing, and you don't do any networking, then it's a coin flip, isn't it? It's not great odds still, you know?
Correct.
And I think that's true for the quality control. Now for networking, I believe networking can get closer to like 70% maximum value. In fact, if I really were to think about it, it'd be more like that. Like this is a true maximum that can actually happen, right? But 70%, meaning like it's still not 100, but you increase your chances quite a bit, even if you have very, very low quality. I would say that like there's still a chance. If you have zero quality, then that doesn't work out at all. No one's going to hire you. It's not a good metric. I need a better way of thinking about this. But ultimately, what I'm getting at is that the more you increase into this, the more you increase into that, right, the better your chances is to get to 100, right? So if you have a really good quality and you got a really good network, then you really increase your chances. You know what I mean? So when I do events, I go to events, that's what I do. I build my network. When I talk to people online, I build my network. When I do interviews, I build my network. When I post on Facebook groups, I build my network. When I post on ArtStation.
Like, people know you. Like, it's easy for you to network. Like, how would we network? People don't randomly start talking.
Yeah, I love that. I love that counter argument because the point is that nobody didn't know me. You act like I just woke up and then everybody knew me. And then you realize how preposterous that is, right? Like you realize immediately as soon as I counted your counter that of course nobody knew who I was always. Are you kidding me, dude? Did you know who I was 10 years ago? Did you follow me then?
10 years.
No, never. Of course not, because nobody did. I had like a couple hundred followers. You know what I mean? And so I love when the people counter with this, like, well, you're already established, bitch. I became established. I'm trying to tell you how it works. You just don't want to believe it, dude. And so it's like, you see the problem with that argument now, right? Like you see like, oh wait, of course AJ wasn't like, oh yeah, when I was a baby, dude, like Baby Jones, dude. I came out and everybody was like, well, I'm going to follow this baby, dude. One day it's going to be doing good stuff, dude. You see how silly that is now, right? Like, of course it's easier, dude, when I have more people follow me. Of course. But I started by doing it one step at a time. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying that it is easier. I use the Kim Jong-gi example of talking about like when you are really, really good, but don't do any network, then yes, of course, your network is going to explode even bigger and better, right? Because you have something of quality, right? But I was using that as an example because nobody knew he existed. So it didn't matter that he had quality work.
Came out of sudden rate.
Yeah. So that's a metric that I like to use because sometimes people are really good, but they don't have a network. They don't post. I always say like so for instance, we have Filippo, right? So Filippo, like I'm sure this is probably true if I had to guess. Like if I were to ask him like how often he posts, he probably doesn't post very often. Now it's not a question of quality though. We've all seen his work. It's really good. Right? but it's a question of consistent posting. And if he were to answer it honestly, he would be like, yeah, I don't post often, not nearly as often as someone like me, right? Yeah, busted busted out of the womb, shaking hands, drinking beers with ADs. Yeah, no, man, like, of course that's not what happened. So how did I start? Well, the same way as many of you guys I'm suggesting. I'm just telling you, I didn't know that that's how it was working. Like me talking to people, going out to events. Like I didn't do that because I knew that it was going to work. I did it because I didn't know what else to do, right? And now that I have hindsight, right, I have the ability to look back, and I'm like, of course that's how you do it, right? And like when you don't do that, that's why it's happening. You know, it's just like you can't just all of a sudden be able to draw motorcycles if you've never drawn a motorcycle. You can't use that same argument of like, well, you've always been able to draw motorcycles. That doesn't make any sense, right? That person had to learn how to draw motorcycles, you know? It's not like Kim Jong-ji just always knew how to draw on fisheye lens. He has sketchbooks filling his closet. He has storage units for his sketchbooks. Do you have storage units for his sketchbooks? No, right? You know, not that I know of. No, you don't. Nobody here has storage units for all their sketchbooks that they have filled up over the years, right? Kim Jong-ji does. That's why he's Kim Jong-ji. You know what I mean? And it's really, and he's playing that game now. He's doing the social game, and he's going to events. He's doing talks. He's doing interviews. And you're right. It's an exponential thing. You're not wrong that when you're way more established, it becomes bigger and bigger. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. Right. But I'm saying, I'm talking to you like, but nothing changes though. The same strategy is there, like from the beginning. You know, you show yourself here, you show yourself there. More people talk about you, more people share your work, and it becomes something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not that anything is different. Like, okay, right when you reach this mark, you should do this strategy. Right here, you should do this strategy. I mean, there is some nuance there. I won't disagree with this, but fundamentally, what am I doing to increase my followers? Going to events, talking to people, posting my artwork.
Correct.
You know, again, there might be nuanced differences, but those nuanced differences are the same kind of nuanced differences as in asking what does Usain Bolt eat for breakfast, as if that's going to make you a faster runner if you eat the same breakfast as him. You know, I'm sure it matters. It helps him, especially when he's competing against other Olympians, right? But for someone like you and me, who are the common folk who have no training, first we got to start running. First, let's start running. Then we'll worry about what we're eating in the morning, you know? And so that's what I'm trying to say. Like, first you got to run, brother, you know? And then when you start to build, then you can start asking some serious questions. Like, should I do more fan art? Should I do more of like this kind of art? Or should I post on this site? Or should I post on that site? Do I do better here? Or do I do better there? But you won't learn that until you start doing it, right? You might find that all your artwork works really well on Twitter, or mine doesn't. So my advice to you wouldn't have made any sense if I say, oh, you should post on Instagram, where your work does better on Twitter, like the kind of work that you do. But my advice of posting often generally is still true. You just, Twitter works better for you than it does for me.
Correct.
You know? I was talking to my buddy who's helping me with I'm building like a Chinese network, right? And I've basically set him up for about 15 weeks of content that he can share on this account. It's basically the Chinese Twitter. And he's like, man, you already have like 160 followers. And he was talking about how another artist that he's managing had like 3,000 followers after like one post, you know?
My God.
And I was like, yeah, but I'm not too worried about this because I understand the long game. Like right now it's 100. But if we keep doing this, it's going to get to 1,000. And then it's going to get to 2,000. Then it's going to get to 3,000 and 4,000. And then it goes like 6,000. We skip 2. Then it goes to 8,000, 10,000. Then it starts to go to 15,000. You know what I mean? In the same amount of time, it got me that first few hundred. It's an exponential thing. But what am I doing differently? Nothing. I'm just posting artwork all the time. You know, I literally gave him hundreds of images for him to post for the next half year, you know? And I'm gonna build like a huge Chinese audience pretty soon, probably within a couple of years, like 1 or 2 years for sure, you know. But like, so you hear what I'm saying? That like years. I'm not saying like in a day. Like, because that's not smart. That's not practical. You know, like if you think because if you go with the model of I don't have 1 million followers after one post, you're never going to work. You're not going to do well. You know, because you created unrealistic standards for yourself. You know. But if you say I'm going to post every day as often as I can on these very popular websites, you'll find that it's pretty sustainable and a very practical and a more reachable goal than you might have suspected. You might not have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers like someone like me or some of your contemporaries, but you have enough that can get you those jobs. You have enough that will pay for your Patreon or whatever, you know, to make you enough money to live off of, you know? Like, but if you're looking to try to get that Kim Kardashian numbers, I'm sorry to tell you, that's not likely to happen, right? But like,
even it's unrealistic.
Yeah, it's not realistic. There's very, very, like, statistically speaking, it's not very likely to become a celebrity. It's just very hard and very statistically low. Even and specifically the kind of celebrity that makes good money from it. Okay.
True.
But to be a well-known artist amongst your community, yeah, that's totally within your reach, dude. Absolutely.
The day when you follow me, I'll be like accomplished artist.
Nope, I'll never follow you. Only until you're an accomplished artist.
I'll try my best.
No, of course, man. But like I've said, this whole argument of like, well, it's easier. This is true. This is true.
A crazy thing just happened. Like past a day or two back, I think Aaron Sims Creative, they started following me because of some of my work, I guess.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I was really happy.
It takes time, dude. It's not gonna happen overnight. Once you realize this, like my greatest strategy is my patience. You know, people aren't patient, and that's why they struggle. Because if you have that patience, then you're willing to just keep pushing through. When you don't have that patience, you'll stop once you feel like nothing's working. When in reality everything is working, you just don't see it happening as fast as you might want it to.
I'm just stressed about paying bills and all that because I don't want to make a switch in the field again, because I started off as a graphic designer and now towards character design. It's been a roller coaster ride. Like I've changed my field from advertising because I was a commercial artist back then. I was working with advertising agencies. So now it's like difficult because I was teaching and I quit the job of teaching because that was not what I wanted to do, because it was not paying off the bills.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. And there's nothing I can say to make that go any faster, my dude.
That's why I am a bit stressed. I have patience. Like it's not that I have no patience at all, because
no, you got some real circumstances. I get it. And I'm just saying that, like, having those real circumstances, usually all that really does is to help motivate you, right?
Yeah, I have to run the house. My father expired like 4-5 years back, so it's been really tough.
Yeah, and I sympathize with this, my man. I'm just saying that, like, the fastest way to get to where you want to do is what you're doing already, okay? Which is to keep pushing your artwork, keep getting better, and then also just you need to start sharing your work. You got to network more often, you know. And if you have to take like some sort of other job because it just might happen to be the case, you have to do that. Then that's what you got to do. Like, you wouldn't be the first person that I've heard this story about, where they took on a job that had nothing to do with art to pursue their art, and eventually it worked out for them. In fact, those are my favorite stories, are the stories where people make sacrifices, because it makes all the other people that don't make those sacrifices look like chumps, you know.
I worked in the textile industries for 5 years just to make it to come back to art.
I get it, dude. I was a plumber, man, and it wasn't the greatest. Yeah, I understand. I'm not saying that I don't get the struggle. I'm just saying that nobody is gonna care, you know. Like, it's not like when you apply for a job, you're like, hey, by the way, all the stuff, and they're like, oh, cool, dude. Like, your work is really mediocre and not that good. But since you told us the story, we're gonna hire you. It's not American Idol, dude. This is not how this is not how the world works.
It doesn't work anywhere. It's just that I'm too stressed about all of these things.
Yeah, like I said, the best thing, the best thing that the stress can do for you is keep you focused. That's what it did. That's what it did for me, at least. You know, that's like the best thing you can do is channel that energy into focusing. And but be smart too. I don't want you to like live out on the streets. Like be smart. Like be very realistic. But it is definitely attainable. You might not think it is, but trust me, it very much is. Okay, you just gotta like keep your head straight and focus on the tasks at hand.
I religiously followed you for 2 years without knowing you, without talking to you, just by watching all your tutorials and videos. It's helped me.
I'm glad, man.
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, man. All right, dude. Well, hopefully, hopefully we can get you on track. But like I said, it's gonna take some time. But if you keep at it, like it may take you less time than you might think.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna end the class here, though. This is a good note to end it on. With that being said, you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I appreciate you all. Cheers. And I'll talk to you guys next week.
By the way, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, dude.
Surgery stuff?
So the surgery doesn't happen right away. That was a post-op surgery meeting. We were talking about the surgery. It wasn't necessarily the surgery. Surgery is going to be in October 8th, which we might have to talk about what we're going to do then. But regardless, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Cool.
Cheers, friends.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.